Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canelli, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. He's a guitarist and an award-winning gold and platinum recording artist with Capitol Records Canada. He has over 30 years of experience negotiating major tours as well as extensive touring of his own. He's an associate partner with Artist International Management, who handles over 100 shows a year for the Little River Band. Please welcome to the show, Mark Lyman. Mark, welcome to Before the Lights.
Thanks, Tommy. Great to be here.
Let's start here because we're going to get into AIM, but let me start here. Tell me and my listeners, where does your love of music come from?
That's a good question. It started a very long time ago. I was listening to little records as a kid. You know, my parents had recordings lying around. My relatives, my uncle, who I was very close with, had left, always had records lying around from as far back as Dion and the Belmonts and the Ventures. So music was always around. I was always hearing music, I was always listening to music, in the family homes.
What were some of your favorite artists and groups growing up then?
Well, I would say Jimi Hendrix was a big influence. Listened to Eric Clapton, of course, and Jethro Tull. And being from Montreal, it was pretty much a hotbed of progressive rock, British progressive rock. So I was always listening to groups like Genesis and Yes and King Crimson and of course Pink Floyd. David Gilmour was a huge influence too. I loved his playing, and it was a lot of fun to listen to these guys and what they were doing back in those days.
Tell me then, how does somebody who attends McGill University in Montreal, Quebec, and studies political science end up in the music career and playing for groups such as Luba and B-Side Jones and Sacred Union?
That's a good question. Well, the short of it is I was in first year of political science, and I met up with an old elementary school friend of mine who was a year ahead, so we were never running in the same circles. But he always played in rival bands. We never played together, but we always played in different bands in the same schools. And so he was in the second year of political science, and I was in my first, and we were in the same class, some of the same classes together. So we got to meet up. And of course, the first part of the conversation is, hey, what do you think about getting together and playing music? And that was like the turning point. So we started, he brought his girlfriend at the time, who was Luba, and I brought a friend of mine who was a bass player. And that's how it started, just out of just a conversation and out of our love for music and just, we hadn't seen each other for a little while. And that was all of a sudden the explosion that happened between us. It was meant to happen.
I always like to ask when I interview people in music this question, because it gets such a crazy answer with different people. What is your definition of the genre funk? I mean, what is funk music to you?
Funk is like, and it's funny because they have a couple of documentaries out there, which I've watched a few of them, which is pretty interesting. And I think they kind of call it like funk is like R&B, but it's really dirty. It's like the funk. I mean, just the word itself. It's like, I know that he described it. I know that Questlove, who's a great drummer, and he's on a lot of these. I think he was in the backing band on. Is it Jimmy Fallon? And he was moderating this documentary, and all these people that were talking, whether it was Bootsy Collins from, of course, James Brown, and all these guys, these bass players and musicians, they just kind of described it as a down and dirty R&B, soul, like gut wrenching, just something you're pulling out, yes, out of your soul. And somebody came up with that, came up with the name funk because that's what it is. It's the funk. It's not rock and roll, and it's not R&B. It's funk, and it's a different feel altogether. But It's a lot of fun to play. I can tell you that much.
That's a better answer than I've heard in a while. It's dirty. Because even I ask friends of mine, what is funk? They just go, funk. And they start naming off groups. I'm like, okay, you're naming groups, but what is funk? It's like, it's a hard thing to describe in people. They just can't get it out. So I love that R&B and dirtiness. I like that answer.
That's what it is.
Artist International Management, AIM, has been a full-service artist management and booking agency handling some of the most in demand. It's represented Hall of Fame inductees such as Jerry Lee Lewis, Percy Sledge, as well as Sly and the Family Stone. It has a new website, aimrocks.com. Let me start here with AIM. Tell me, how will this new website going to make your job easier? And I'm going to get into your job next.
Well, it's more streamlined. It's got less. It's less busy than the last website. It's mainly designed for. I mean, anybody can access it, but in general, it's made for talent buyers and promoters, people in general as well. But it makes it easy to just sort of navigate through the site as opposed to what we had last time. We've kind of streamlined it and brought it down, so it's very easy to see things. We've taken out a bunch of different topics or headings and just created exactly what we needed people to see. I believe we're going to have a titled page designated on that site for. I think we talked about the legacy of the company, about pictures with some of us with the artists that we've represented over the years, some of us, or some of them that are not even with us today, unfortunately. But to leave sort of like a legacy of photos that the people that we worked with, through the years, whatever we can find.
I'm going to put a link in the show notes, listeners, so you can go right to it and click on aimrocks.com and check out the website. The president is Steve Green, who has managed not just Little River Band, but BTO and others. How did you get connected with Steve?
That was back in 92, and I was kind of done with playing and being involved with the music, that part of the music side of things in Montreal. And I decided it would be a good time to get out of Dodge and come to a warmer climate. And a friend of mine at the time was a freelance writer who actually hooked me up. He said, give this guy a call. And I said, how do you know him? And he said, well, I have to do an interview with Peter Criss from drummer from Kiss at the time. And he said, give this gentleman a call. And, if you're going down to Florida, that's where he is. So I did, and rest is history. 30 plus years ago.
Where did you start with the company? What was your first job there with AIM?
Well, I was, Steve asked me to, you be the agent for Canada, because there were other agents involved in the company at the time. One was doing comedy, one was doing like the oldies acts, one was doing the rock acts. And so he said, you do Canada, you be the guy that's going to handle Canada. And I said, okay, that sounds good. Being from Canada, knowing the territory and the terrain. And, but it was, it was a learning curve too, because I didn't really know the business. So I was sort of like thrown into the deep end. And the first day, I think I booked a couple of dates for Pat Travers. And maybe some of your listeners know of Pat, maybe some don't. He's a great guitar player out of I can't remember. I think he's stateside, but he had an impact in Canada at the time. And I booked like 3 or 4 shows, like one in Montreal and one in Ottawa and one in Quebec City. And I was like enthused. I go, wow, this is not hard. And then as the week progressed, it's like, okay, wait a second. This is not as easy as it seems. So, and Steve caught that. So he said, okay, look, here's what you're going to do. You're going to sit facing me and you're going to watch and listen. And I'm going to sort of teach you the ropes. And that's really how it kind of started. And through the years, networking and becoming acquainted with people in the industry and having developed business relationships over the years. You know, it's been wonderful. It's been amazing.
Tell me some of the acts like that you've worked with.
You got a few days. I've actually compiled the list. Actually, my better half compiled the list. We were talking about doing these interviews, and she said, well, let me write up a list of, you just tell me who it is, I'll mark it down. And even the other day I realized, wow, I forgot that these people should be on the list, and I forgot to add them. So, gosh, if you go from the start, we were doing Kansas at the time, Dr. Hook, Ronnie Montrose, Rick Derringer, Pat Travers, Percy Sledge, one of my favorites, of course. And then we picked up Survivor and Starship and BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Jerry Lee Lewis, Nazareth, Color Me Bad.
Did you add up how many are on that list?
You know what? I didn't, but I'm sure there's every bit of a good 50 acts over the years, you know, and of course, Little River Band and Ambrosia and, you know, all these. And you know, I'm getting handed the list here.
I
missed Molly Hatchet, Atlanta Rhythm Section, Firehouse, Chuck Negron of Three Dog Night, Brian Howe, the former lead singer of Bad Company, John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, you asked, Radio, Peter Beckett of Player, Peter and Ronnie Moss of Player, Lou Graham, formerly, of course, of Foreigner, the Baha Men, Lee Rocker of the Stray Cats, Steve Augeri, who sang for Journey, Bobby Kimball of Toto, Peter Criss, who was the starting point, Lonesome Dave Peveritt from Foghat, Ace Frehley, who am I missing here? Electric Light Orchestra, Part 2, which was really cool. Did I put that on here? Color Me Bad, I mentioned. Vanilla Ice, John Waite.
John Waite.
Oh, did I have something there?
that is a wide variety. I love it. And there's a couple of that you listed that are former guests on my show. I've had Wayne from Little River Band on the show. I've had Burley from Ambrosia on the show. I've had Arnell from Radio on the show. So some of those guys have already been on my shows.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, you know, Wayne and the band have gone back with me since 1996. So they've been with us for a very long time. We've watched them develop, and Wayne's super cool. I actually did a podcast with him and his wife during COVID, which was a lot of fun. And I'm sure he talked about that too. And Burley, he's a super guy. I love
Great
Burley
guy.
Drummond.
Love Burley.
Good man. And, you know, so I work with these people for years and years and years, and they're not just clients. They've actually become, you know, in a way, friends of mine that we speak to each other on occasion. You know, Lee Rocker, the Stray Cats, he just called the other day just to see how I'm doing, you know, just see what's up. Hey, let's catch up. We haven't spoken in a while, you know. So this is how it's sort of morphs itself into more than just the agent artist relationship.
Explain the process to me then on how you work with acts and everything. You don't have to go through everything, but give me a summary of how you work with them. Well,
for instance, a promoter or a talent buyer will send over an offer. Well, I'll get an email to see if who might be available on a specific day. They may be asking for a specific artist on our roster. They might be asking me, can you give me a list of who might be available? They usually run it through their channels for whatever it is, if it's casinos or it's festivals or it's special events or whatever it is, performing arts centers. They'll get back to me if there is something they want to discuss further. And when we do, we talk about the financial issue, the money that's involved, and what they're prepared to offer. It's not a hard thing. It's after all these years, you basically get the fundamentals of it on a daily basis. And then, for instance, if somebody sends me an offer for Little River Band, I'll pick up the phone, I'll speak to Wayne and say, hey, we got this offer. And he usually gives me a lot of latitude. He knows where I know where it's going to go. But hey, I like talking to him. So I pick up the phone and we chat and we discuss very quickly and, whatever. And then I'll go ahead and confirm the show, with the buyer and send out a contract. And that's basically it. And then it's, the machines start to work from a different angle. Their PR director, Donna Nolan Wilson. I'm giving her a little plug right there.
She's been on the show too. I've had Donna on the show as well.
I know she has. Yes, she's talked very highly of you. So Donna will get in the act and send out all the promotional assets to the people that need it. The pictures, the bios, setting up interviews. That's a different area that she handles. And my job is just pretty much almost done. I got to make sure everything's in line. I got, Donna keeps me informed as to how everything is running with promotions. I have to sometimes negotiate percentages, but that's a whole different thing. But I got to make sure everything is intact in terms of the offer on an overall, on the overall scale of it. So that's what happens. And I got to go running after them to get, no, I don't have to run, but, I get a deposit and then the band takes care of the rest of it.
Make a difference with Free as a T. Did you know 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental health challenge every year? Free as a T is giving the gift of good. For every t-shirt purchased, $5 will be donated to the Mental Health Coalition to support mental health resources for the millions of people who need them. Plus, for every purchase, 1 shirt is donated to someone in need. Free your mind and shop with a cause. Buy one, give one for $45 and learn more about us and our mission at freeasat.com or click the link in the show notes. Make a difference, 1 tea at a time. Happy tea time.
How much easier then is it for you to work both sides of buyer and artist? Does that make your job a lot easier, I'm guessing?
You got it right. I think one of the things that really helps me is my understanding of the other side of the fence, and that's the production and what these guys have to go through and the travel and the logistics, the overall logistics of everything, because I've been through this. So I understand it. And that's what they like about it. That's what they like about me, in the sense that I'm not some guy that has no clue. And I'm not just the negotiator. I'll negotiate it the right way because I understand what's involved. And they can talk to me on those levels that, you wouldn't normally be able to talk to a quote unquote, just business agent, a guy who doesn't understand the everything that goes into it. I'll talk to Wayne's production manager, Jim Wakefield. He'll talk me sideways about console brands and model numbers, but yet I'll know exactly what he's talking about. And I have that on all the different levels when I'm talking to, John Waite or his bass player, Tim. We talk about what's required, or Molly Hatchett, what's required. I know about all the amps and the drums and the production, the keyboards and everything that goes into it. So for me, it's great. It's almost, it's second nature. So that's why it's pretty cool.
If you can you tell me what artists or groups that AIM is looking at bringing on board?
Well, we're looking for artists in general.
Oh, okay.
Not any one particular artist, but we're looking overall to see what's out there. That's one of the reasons why we revamped the site. So it's a little bit more updated. Donna actually put it together, and she did a great job in conjunction with, working with me to sort of tweak it. And we just want artists out there to look and understand who we represent, what we're doing. And they have a pretty good idea, in general. We know a lot of the artists out there, but there's a lot that we don't know. And so we're just trying to appeal to that area of artists that are looking for great representation. We've been doing it a very long time. We work for the artists. We just don't just run a business here. this is the artists are our business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I say, whenever anybody's asking me, I've always had that one statement that, Steve Green has told me from the very beginning, we work for the artists. That's what we do, because without the artists, we don't have anything.
Right.
That's really, and that's not just us, that's anybody. And we take it to the next step. I'm on the phones all the time with them, talking to them, working with the buyers, the talent agents, the promoters. And they like that. It's not just, oh, hi, okay, we got a show for you. Okay, we'll send you a copy of the contract. Bye. It's constant communication and getting the job done. That's what we do. How
has networking in your past aided to the success of Artist International Management?
Tommy, this is what this business is. It's a network. It really is. And it's funny because I said, I got to start going back out to some of these conventions, meeting people, because I've worked with people for could be 20 years. There's guys I've met that I haven't met that I've worked with for, I can say 25 years. And we talk on the phone all the time. And it's like, yeah, we got to get together next time. So I would go, they wouldn't go. They would go, I wouldn't be there. So it's funny, but we have this, even though we might not even know each other, from just being in front of each other, I have business relationships with people for years, and it maybe this one puts me onto somebody else in the business that's looking for something, or vice versa. There's always a sort of connection that's always working, in terms of just people coming in and out, and the nice thing about it is I get calls daily from people that I've never talked to before, and it starts there, and all of a sudden, we have a connection that's could be years long after that. So that's what's great about this business, is you never know what's going to happen from day to day, and that's what I love about this. This isn't your 9 to 5, like, okay, I'm going in, this is what I'm expecting today. You never know what's going to happen, and that's the great thing. And it's 24/7.
Right.
It's always been 24/7.
How much assistance do you have to give promoters, or how much do you work with promoters?
I work with promoters daily. I don't have to give them, the only assistance I have to give them is how much I'm going to negotiate the deal with these guys.
Okay.
How hard I'm going to negotiate, how tough I'm going to be. And I'm not really a tough guy. I need to, I stand my ground when I need to, but very nicely. We have great working relationships. But I don't really need to. If it's somebody that's new to the game, or that's somebody that's getting into it, I'll walk them a little bit. I have no problem. I'm very, I have a lot of patience, and that's what my better half says. I have so much patience. But somebody who's like into this here, I want them to succeed. I want them to succeed. I want them to have a great show. I want them to sell lots of tickets, and I'll help. And Donna does the same. But for the most part, I would say that the promoters know their market, know what they need, know how to promote it. And we get the bands out there. Donna sets up interviews for whoever needs to have, the interviews done. So my job's not really so much assisting them. It's more of, me working with them and making the deals happen the right way.
Do you have a good negotiating story for a tour you can tell me and my listeners?
That's a good question. You caught me on that one. I've surprised myself. I'm thinking maybe sometimes, a lot of times agents, they'll put a number out there, and somebody will say, okay. And you go, what? Wow. Okay. That was pretty easy. Maybe I should ask for more money.
Right.
But I don't think I really have anything that I had like some super crazy negotiating situation going on, because usually it doesn't happen that way. I'm the kind of person that is, if you're not going to negotiate, if you're going to walk away, then that's on you. If you want to talk to me and we could come to an understanding or some term that's going to work for you and the band, for me and the band, I'm okay with it. But I've never really had any really bad negotiations. There's probably things that have happened during tours, like in South America. I can tell you there was crazy stories with like something that happened with Nazareth years ago. I can tell you stories about, Sly being on tour. We did a European tour back in 2007 for over, I don't know, it was like almost $2 million worth. And he went out on stage for like, I don't know, 10 minutes till he got on stage. It was one thing. Then he'd get on stage, 10 minutes later, he'd walk off stage. And I mean, we were playing all the major shows out there, all the major festivals, like the Montreux Jazz, the North Sea Jazz, the Pori Jazz, the Umbria Jazz, all these big monstrous jazz festivals with hundreds of thousands of people. You had Jeff Beck on there. You had Snoop Dogg on there. You had everybody and all the big artists. And this was like the big deal. And then he just, those kind of stories I can tell you were like, they knocked the wind out of you. You're like, okay, I'm never going to do this again. But as far as negotiating situations, I don't think there was any one time where I can say I really had a bad time.
On average, how many tours are you guys managing at once with AIM?
Well, there's multiple dates that go out. There's multiple shows happening at the same time. I don't know. I can't really tell you how many shows are going on within the scope of a month or 2 months or the entire year. But, we have Little River out there. They're doing tons of dates. I got Molly Hatchet out there. I've got John Waite and Ambrosia shows and Firefall shows. And, it's just a continuous turnover of dates that are being booked and played. So it's not like a specific tour. It's basically everybody's out playing constantly.
What do you want the listeners to know about Artist International Management that I haven't brought up yet that you want to make sure they know?
Well, I think you brought up pretty much all the strong points. I think when you bring it down to the core, the source of what we do is we work for our artists. We work for them, getting them the best possible deals that we can. We've been doing this a long, long time. I think Artists International actually started in 1984, and it's progressed, and here we are in 2023, and we're still here. Unfortunately, the pandemic shut a lot of people down that couldn't recover from it. We're still here. I can tell you that I worked for a year and a half with no shows playing, but pretty much rescheduled everything I could humanly possibly do with the least amount of fallout. So that was my goal. That was my mission. I wasn't letting any stone go unturned, and I was going to reset everything, and did it multiple times. That in itself shows the integrity of the company and what I do and what I did and what we stand for and who we are.
You've been in this music business for a long time, over 30 years, and probably going to be in it for many years to come. But when it's done, what do you want people to say about Mark Lyman's legacy in the music industry?
That's a good question. He was a cool guy. He loved music. He worked for his bands, and he was a patient and fair man.
There you go. There you go. So we're going to get out of music a little bit, because I see that you're into something that I am as well, and that's animals and animal rescue. Your feelings for rescuing animals and how long you've been involved in this and all those kinds of things.
Well, my business partner's wife ran and still continues to run a rescue on a smaller level, but she had a huge rescue at one point, and she was rescuing, getting a lot of pit mixes and all kinds of breeds, and had a 5 acre ranch. And I remember Wayne was even out there participating in fundraising that was happening. We had Lee Rocker perform. We had Brian Howe from Bad Company perform. Over the years, we raised a lot of money, and she has homed a lot of dogs through the years. Actually, I just lost my chocolate lab back last November, who was an alumni of Have a Heart Rescue here in Florida, and I've always been a softie. I think I'm going to take a break right now, but I've always been a softie when it comes to animals, and I work daily with 3 of them, 3 little ones that are in the office, that are the dogs that are from the Greens, and they come and greet me every day at the door, and they want their treats. So I gotta do that, or they won't let me alone. But it's fun, and it's nice, and it's great. I'm a dog lover. It's just it gets me.
Yeah.
But, like a lot of people, and yeah, it's very enjoyable.
I understand. I'm an animal lover myself. I have a soft spot in my heart for animals, so I completely can concur with you where you're coming from there. Mark,
Thanks.
I wish you nothing but success with AIM. I hope you guys continue to grow and continue to get more artists and get to the point to where, you're just going, man, and we're going to need to expand, and we can't control all the number of artists we have. So I hope it gets to that point for you.
Me too. Well, so far it's actually it's pretty busy, considering. So I'm happy where I'm at, and always looking for new artists, new artists, old artists, whatever. So anybody listening, you want a good agent, give me a call. I'll do the work for you.
Go to the show notes to get clicked on aimrocks.com. Mark, thanks for coming on the show and talking about a little bit about your past and a lot about Artist International Management.
Thanks for having me, Tommy. It was a pleasure, and I had a great time.
Listeners, also remember, I am an inspirational speaker that will inspire you to inspire others with my story of beating cancer against the odds. Flip your hourglass. Time is running out. Go to TommyKennelly.com. That's TommyKennelly.com, or click the link in the show notes. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.